Dr. Theodore Fujita of the University of Chicago developed this scale rating tornadoes from F0 all the way up to F5. F0 means it creates the smallest amount of damage, but an F4 or F5 causing the most destruction. The Saugatuck tornado, based on its destruction, has been classified by the National Weather Service as an F4. There you can see the scale on your screen. The second tornado to strike West Michigan on April 3rd, 1956 was an F5. An F5 tornado is very, very rare anywhere in the United States, and it's even more unusual to see one in West Michigan. Tracking this storm 50 years later is Terry DeBoer. She's right now near the corner of Van Buren and 40th Street in Hudsonville, a place that felt the fury of that F5 tornado in 1956.
Well, that's right, Bill. I want to set the stage here for you. Back to my west here, the dark area, it's called the muck field. It's what's left over of an old riverbed. The tornado crossed the muck fields and destroyed homes up and down Van Buren, including the home that used to stand where that brick house is today. 13 people died that day here in Hudsonville. It's a day survivors say they will never forget.
This is what happens to a car that gets caught trying to outrun an F5 tornado.
We got in the car, he went behind the wheel, and I sat next to him, and my mother and my grandfather went in the back seat.
Meet Betty Overbeek. She was 20 years old when the tornado struck. In a race against the fury, Betty's dad, mom, and grandfather tried to outrun West Michigan's only F5. They didn't make it.
And then the car was just picked up, and it was just, well, just flew through the air.
Betty was so seriously hurt she spent weeks in the hospital. She and her mom survived. Her father and grandfather did not.
And then I looked around, and my mother had been thrown quite a distance from us, but then she came walking towards me.
Betty's family car, in fact, no car, is ever a match for the force of an F5.
Oh, praise the Lord. We could have all been gone.
On the Boss family farm, they didn't even know it was coming. Scott was 6.5 years old at the time. He was in the house. His dad was in the barn milking the cows when suddenly part of the roof was whipped away. They ran outside and saw the tornado almost 3 miles away.
Then we could see the tornado heading for the woods over there. And it was actually in the woods by that time. And it was just a big gray cloud. It looked to us like the woods was on fire. We thought it was a fire going through Doc's woods.
Through Doc's woods and beyond, this tornado stayed on the ground for almost an hour. Most tornadoes are on the ground for only minutes, traveling only a few miles, but this monster, wow! Look at this amazing path through Hudsonville, the Standale Business District, into Walker, through Rockford, and eventually falling apart around Trufant. 1 hour, 50 miles, a lifetime of tragic loss and heartbreak. Horrible memories those who survived would never forget.
I've often questioned why our lives were saved, why I wasn't killed, why my mother wasn't killed, but felt that God had a purpose why we should still be living, that my dad and grandpa died, but we were spared.
And one note for you, when the survivors finally emerged here, everything was covered with dark black soot, a filthy, grimy reminder of nature's fury that passed through that area on that day.
Was it one tornado or two that hit West Michigan 50 years ago? The man that knows the answer to that is Ernie Ostino from the National Weather Service, and he's responsible for changing the record books and improving our knowledge of that tornado, April 3rd, 1956. He's done a lot of work on that particular storm here over the past 20, 30 years or so.
Meteorologist Ginger Z live in Standale, the next spot ravaged by the 56 tornadoes. We'll have a story of a survivor and tell you how far we've come in the world of warning the public before severe weather happens. All of that when Tracking the Storm 50 years later returns.
For over 50 years, everyone, including the National Weather Service, thought the tornado that started in Saugatuck was the same tornado that also traveled through Hudsonville and the Standale Business District.
The house sat here. It was actually probably over to here. You can actually see the outline. I think you see the perimeter, this kind of square area. and that was the basement part of the house. And it just lifted up and disintegrated and was carried a couple hundred feet.
And thanks to the detective skills of Ernie Ostuno, we now know differently. As one of the lead forecasters for the Kent County National Weather Service, Ernie has spent more than a year recreating the path of the tornadoes. Eyewitness accounts, old photographs, and lots of footwork led Ernie to conclude that it was 2 separate tornadoes that struck West Michigan.
Well, after ripping through Hudsonville, word traveled faster than the tornado itself. Standale was in the path. Now, no sirens were sounded, but many could see the funnel coming. Storm teammates Ginger Z is live at Kinney and Lake Michigan Drive, the epicenter of the damage done in the Standale area by the storm of 1956.
Well, that's right, Bill. This intersection was much different, but it was developed and then leveled here in Standale back in 1956. Let's take a look with our other camera, give you a perspective of what Lake Michigan Drive looks like today. As you're looking east, back toward Grand Rapids, as we swing the camera south and eventually west, we'll see the string of businesses and homes that make what Lake Michigan Drive is to us today. Now, this land originally was owned by the man Standale is named after, Howard Stanton.